Guys, today let's begin to put the macroeconomic indicators side by side and be able to understand some few things that happens. But before we do that, let us look at the macroeconomic flow. Okay, which one actually comes first and which that has influence on the other. Okay, so that's what we want to do today. All right, my name is Emmanuel Amote. I'm your economic and financial educator. Okay, so the first one that we can be looking at is inflation. All right, so the inflation actually is talking about goods and services. Okay, how prices of goods and services are actually changing persistently in the economy. All right, so any macroeconomic indicator will have to depend on how inflation is happening within the system, and how government responds, how central bank responds, how commercial banks responds, and all of that. Okay, so if inflation is very high, then what exactly happens? What happens is that cost of goods and services will also go up. Cost of goods and services go up because things are changing. Then once cost of goods and services go up with the same amount of money that you receive, then your purchasing power will fall. And then once your purchasing power falls, then what will happen in the economy? The economy will start getting overheated. And then in the quest to actually slow down the overheating in the system, there should be response from government or central bank. So what happens? The monetary policy will now come in. So Bank of Ghana will have to increase the monetary policy rate. So once monetary policy rate is increased, then borrowing actually becomes very, very expensive. Once the monetary policy goes up, borrowing becomes very expensive, and then spending will also slow down. Then what also happens to T-bill? Then government T-bill borrowing will also adjust. All right, it will adjust. Then what happens? Investors will now begin to demand for higher returns because T-bill will fall. So once it falls, investors will begin to demand for higher returns for the T-bill, because if they are demanding, if the T-bill is high, that is what is going to encourage them to be buying more of the T-bills. And then what will happen? The T-bill rate will increase. Government would automatically have to increase the T-bill rate to be able to attract investors in buying the T-bill rate. And then the Ghana reference rate, the monetary policy rate has gone up. Most of the times, the Ghana Association of Bankers actually look on the monetary policy rate to also adjust their reference rate. All right, so reference rate will also go up. So this is very important to help us be able to understand how things actually happens in the economy. So after this, we'll be putting the data side by side and we'll be able to understand many more things about the economy. Keep following me for more. My name is Emmanuel Amote, your economic and financial educator. I'll catch you in the next video.